Okay, so again, thanks for coming on, man. Again, this is a podcast. It's to help people build their businesses. It helps me build my business, and hopefully, I'm going to help you do the same. And we were talking a little bit earlier about certain trials and tribulations in the entrepreneurial realm, being a solo operator, as you are, as I am, being small business operators, and the kind of stuff, the chutzpah that it takes, some of the trials and tribulations, and
Yeah.
um, couple. I want to ask a couple of questions. I think these would be insightful and help you tell your story to
Mhm.
your potential audience, which is going to be your customers who are ultimately going to do business with you. Um, so the first one is, can you tell us a little story behind how you got started and what inspired you?
Well, the inspiration part's easy. It would have been my parents who, allowed me the freedom as a young person to, have my own thoughts and ideas and wants and so owning a business is something that I've wanted, you know, since I was a kid, and through their sacrifices and hard work, they provided me the opportunity to even be able to do this. When I was into my 40s, you know,
That's awesome.
so I was very lucky. I know not everybody had the benefit of growing up the way I did, so I don't take it for granted. And you know, every day I'm in business is my worst fear is if I fail, I've let them down. You know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah.
um, that's always been my biggest inspiration is they did everything they did in their lives. They grew up poor in southeastern Kentucky, and I mean, dirt floor kind of poor. The kind of poverty that you know, So
Most people don't know
I'm
about.
right, and I'm one generation removed from that.
Right.
Uh, my dad was a truck driver for 40 years in Teamsters and worked his tail off, so his kids didn't have to, and so that's a little insight into my background and where I came from and how I got to be where I'm at. So
Well, thanks for that, man. That's pretty cool because you're right. A lot of people don't have anybody to help them with this or supporting parents. I knew my mother when I started, when I was like, I'm going to do this on my own. She was like, you better be careful. You better do this. I was like, Mom, my mom's been a real estate agent for like 40 something years, which is basically
right,
a solo operator. So if she didn't sell houses, we didn't eat. And it's like, I'm like, come on, Mom.
right,
You've been basically an entrepreneur almost your whole life, or
right.
certainly my whole life since like 10 or something like that. And now you're going to tell me not to be an
Sure,
entrepreneur, like make sure I have a
right,
backup plan to be an employee. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work.
sure.
It's like,
Well, she definitely understands the risks anyway.
oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe, and that's the other thing too. It's like, I just talked to my brother yesterday about the same thing. It's like you take a risk, but it's a calculated risk. Like
Mhm.
you don't just jump in. You didn't just jump in. And my brother
No,
did the same thing. He's in the roofing industry, but he worked for a roofer before. He was in sales. He had the contacts. He had some established people that he could talk to. So it wasn't like he just jumped in blind. And you're kind of the same way. You didn't just jump in blind to this. You actually were
no.
working in signage before, so it's not a new
Right.
industry to you altogether. Where
Correct.
you just had to just jump in both feet into the deep end, which I think
Right.
is one of the fallacies of the hustle culture and entrepreneurs in general. Is like, oh, just quit your day job and do this and blah blah blah. It's like, no, man, you got to eat. You got to have something.
Gotta
Have your
start.
9 to 5, but then have your 6 to 10. You know,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I've done, worked every trade and job under the sun you can dream up before I did this. So all that experience paid off, though.
yeah,
Because as I'm searching for where I fit in best and what I think I might want to do as a career, because up until very recently, owning a business was a pipe dream. You
yeah.
know,
Well, congratulations, man.
so it was so all of those things I learned and skills I picked up in other industries and have all benefited me in this industry. So, as a business owner, just having a sense for, especially now that the buck stops with me now. There's nobody higher than me now. So, and I'm sure you've had worked for some horrible people, and as everybody has,
Oh
and
yeah,
and so you learn. Okay, I know I don't want to treat my people this way, and I know the few good people that I have worked for that treated me well, you want to take those bits and apply that to your own business. And so those are the experiences that I draw, because I don't have anywhere else to pull from,
Right.
other than the things
Yeah, the
that I
lived
did get
experience,
here.
right?
You know,
Um, well, moving right along then, what makes your business unique in the market?
in the sign business, I think being a part of the largest sign franchise in the world is a big advantage, because my resources are vast. I have access to resources that smaller sign companies probably don't have access to, or if they do, they still can't really compete with me on levels of service and price. And really, that's where we here locally, if you look at our Google reviews, all of them are customer service, customer service, customer service. So that's where we have tried to make our mark, is being better than everybody else, because I get customers from other places, they've tried to reach out to other
Oh
places.
yeah,
Well, nobody returns my phone calls, or they quoted me a price and then never called me
yeah,
back, and
dude, that's what I
stuff like
do.
that. You
Um,
know, and
I
so we
call
hear a lot
people,
of that. Yeah.
and if like, because I needed 2 weeks ago, I needed the tire patched, and so I
Hmm.
get on the computer and I just pull them up, and I'm like tires places, right? And I
Hmm.
just call because like I want somebody to pick up, and I want to know
Hmm.
if they're there or not. And it's like if you don't answer the phone, next. If you don't answer the phone, next. So
That's,
so the way that I pick who I'm going to do business with is who answers the phone first. You
and
know.
that's kind of the philosophy I started with. Because again, the administrative parts of running a business is stuff I'm still learning. But the first thought that I had in my mind when I got into this was that be first. Just knowing my own experience as a consumer,
Yeah.
is if somebody's there first, they're responsive, they at least seem like they want to help me solve whatever problem that I have, or sell me whatever I'm trying to buy, regardless of the price. That's who I'm going to do business with, because I like them. They took the time to, they made time for me.
Yeah.
So, and that's, to me, that's the biggest thing. And that's the feedback we get from all of our customers is, you guys are responsive. You took care of us. You made sure everything, if you made a mistake, you corrected it, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what we hang our hat on,
That's
here
like the Ricky
locally.
Bobby philosophy of doing business. If you're not first,
Sure.
you're last.
Exactly. And so we try to do the best we can with that. I mean, obviously sometimes things slip through the cracks and you do the best you can, um, but and that's where we've had our most success. If somebody sends us an inquiry, or calls us, we immediately return the phone calls, the emails, and usually, more often than not, they end up being a customer. So
That's good
it
stuff,
works out
man.
great. So
Speaking of
yeah.
your customers, who are your target customers and how do you reach them?
Well, that's my preferred customers are established businesses, or someone just starting out. We like, any sign company would tell you this. We like companies that have fleet vehicles. Because that's repeat. Work with vehicle wraps and graphics and different things like that. Property managers are another one that we like to work with,
Why is
because
that?
because property managers, they're going to be the ones to source. Like, so let's say a new community is being constructed, so they're working with a contractor, so on and so forth. And if they haven't decided on a signage person, someone has to do all the signage for those
Okay,
properties.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've done a fair bit of that here in the area with a few property managers. So, and any kind of contracting business, anybody that's got vehicles or storefronts. I mean, really, my business is kind of unique. We were speaking about earlier on the phone, is that I have something to pretty much offer anybody that needs signage for their business,
Right.
big or small. Um, but my our preferred you know uh, businesses would be property managers, contractors, HVAC, electricians, plumbers, people like that are going to be repeat. But we work with Reed's Jewelry here locally. They're headquartered out of Wilmington, and
Oh, that's awesome.
we do projects for them all over the South. So as far as how we like to contact our customers, that's the part that we're sort of transitioning for the night. We're kind of in the beginnings of a 60-day kind of transitional plan, as I pull my production manager out of that role, move him more to the front of the business, and doing things like this with your podcast, trying to get our name out there a little
Yeah.
more, and stuff like that. So that's sort of the transition we're making is more of a forward facing business instead of sort of waiting for people
Or
to come to
passive,
us.
yeah. Because you think
You know?
about signage in the past, it's like it was a passive thing, like, people would come to
Mhm,
you, because
mhm,
and I did because I need something, right? So,
mhm.
but it was a shoo-in because 'cause we're in the same group, so it's, like, easy, right? Which is
Right,
great
right,
because before it again, it's like who answers the phone, and I was having a hard
right,
time, and so I don't have you're there, like, we're in the same spot at the same time, so it's like, "Oh, he's gonna
right.
answer the phone 'cause he's right here." But
Yeah,
but
we got
on
you.
that same kinda, since you brought it up, like, what do you think the role that social media is gonna play in your marketing efforts?
Um, well, again, another sort of benefit of the franchise model is that we have a pretty robust internal marketing system, back end. That we so a lot of our social media stuff is on sort of a every couple of day auto schedule where it posts to Google, Facebook, Instagram,
Yeah.
and all those places all simultaneously. Now, those are just automated posts that every franchise owner in the country basically they just put them on a
But it
rotation.
beats nothing.
Sure, but it's so it's kind of one of those things. If you're really super busy and you don't have time to address it yourself or put out a customized post yourself, at least your pages are still active and it's sort of feeding the algorithm machine that Google sees that your pages are active and connected and the terms are the same and all that
Right.
marketing stuff that you learn as you get into it. But so that's a nice benefit that we have, but. Um, it's something that we need to do more of internally that we're trying to do. And again, coming back to doing things like this, like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
is going to be because once my other guy transitions fully out more into the front of the business, I can then focus more on things like this that I need to be doing to administrate the business instead of you know building signs and doing installs and doing all the stuff
Or
that
you
I do.
can, you'll get to a point where you can outsource it too. I mean, um, I forget who said it. I don't know. Some podcast I was listening to, a book that I read or something like that, but they were like, I think it was Tim Ferriss initially who was like, outsource as much of the stuff that you don't like to do as possible, as
Mhm,
quick as possible, because then
for
it
sure.
frees you up for your brain to be creative and do the thing that you do. For me, it's like it's stuff like this. I'm an idea guy. I'm a creation guy. What would you say are the core values and the mission of the business?
Like I was saying earlier, our primary thing is customer service, customer service, customer service, fast response,
Right.
making sure we're responsive to the customer all the way up until the job is installed, and then
And follow up
periodically
after, yeah.
we'll
Um,
follow up. So that's it's kind of the keep it simple, stupid kind of attitude. Just
oh, yeah.
you know, because again, my experience as a consumer and as a lifelong customer, like we all are, it's that most of the time the person that is the most responsive and the most friendly and the most willing to try to help me is the person I'm going to do business with,
Yeah.
and regardless of the cost is usually a secondary thought for most people.
Yeah.
Now there are some people that shop strictly by price, but in my experience, um, even if our price is a little higher on a certain thing, they're just like, well, we just really like working with you, and that's what I like to hear, and that's kind of my philosophy is, they if they want to work with us, they will. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm going to try to rip people off or anything. It's just, our prices are what they are, and and you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's true, and it's like that everywhere. I mean, if you plus too, I mean, sometimes what was it again? Something that I read. It's like price high and justified, but like sometimes stuff is just expensive, you know.
mhm.
And if you there's no way to kind of slide in under the radar. You have to just pay
Sure,
the thing as well. Like diamonds, for example.
sure, right. And there's
They are what they are, and
and a lot of
sure,
people,
they
right?
they're selling them at a percentage above
Sure,
because they get them, but it's like, but they have to insure them, they got to transport them, they got to do all this stuff.
and
So
there's a
by
lot
the
of
time
work
you
involved,
buy it as a consumer, it is what it
right?
is,
Yeah,
and it's going to
and
be
that's
worth
the
what
way
it's
it
going to
is.
be worth. Um,
Yeah, and in the sign business, a lot of people don't understand, even simple signs, how much it requires some effort and some time and energy to do those things. And
mhm.
the larger the sign, people will call me and be like, "Oh yeah, I want this, 4 foot by 8 foot full
Yeah,
EMC digital display, and our budget's
give me,
$12,000."
yeah, and I
Well,
want it 3 hours from
yeah,
now.
yeah, that's a $60,000 sign. Like, it's,
Yeah.
but people just don't know how much things cost, and that's okay because it's my job to educate them, on the process and and find, to your point earlier about, people wanting you to give them a proposal and then telling you their budget afterwards.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like,
it's
I wish you would have
having
put that the other way around. I would have just told you, tell me what your budget is, and I'll tell you if I can do it or not.
and that's a lot of the times how I approach customers, especially if it's a large project. If it's going to be large signs and electronic signs or things like that, is typically that's the first question I ask is, okay, well, if you don't mind, or do you have a budget in mind that you want to stay under, and then I can find you the options in that
Yeah.
budget. Because I've run into the same thing that you'd said, where they tell us that they want all these things. We go through the estimating process and go out and do the site survey and take all the photos and all the measurements, maybe even put together a rough sort of draft of a design. And it's, a $28,000 sign. They're like, oh, well, I only have $2,000 to
It's
spend,
like, oh,
and
it's 2 grand just to send the guy out to do the thing.
so it happens, and it's not, and I understand, and that's why those are the things that you learn is, just because I know how signs are made and constructed and all the stuff that goes into it doesn't mean that you do. So it's my job to explain it to you before you ask me for a price,
Right.
and those are the things you learn, on this side of the sign business. So,
Um, what kind of challenges have you faced, and what'd you do to overcome them?
uh, we had a lot of struggles early on with developing new customers. That was um, because as this was a resale, so this shop has been here for quite a number of years, but the previous owners were kind of getting to retirement age, so they kind of let the business sort of fade into obscurity
Oh
as far
yeah.
as the local knowledge that it was even here.
Right.
So but we did inherit a customer base obviously that we were able to work a little bit to keep us afloat at first, but we had to the struggle we faced was that myself nor my one employee at the time really had any experience with, okay, how do we do this? How do we, besides the digital marketing that was already being provided through my franchise, what other things do we need to do to get our name out there and get new customers? And that's where you sort of develop some bad habits when business is coming in because people are seeking you out because they need signs, but we weren't doing enough to go the next step and say, hey, okay, we know, great, we got this one customer, but we need 10 more just like them. And
Yeah.
it took us some time to figure out the best ways to do that, which we're still, fine tuning to this day. And it'll probably be a ongoing process as long as I own this store. So,
Well, it's something
but
that I
that's,
learned that worked for me and how I did it, and it's different for every business because every business has its own little channel, as
yeah,
it were.
for sure.
But uh, I mean, you can get referrals. Like the referral thing is fantastic if you can do it.
Absolutely.
But and a lot of mine did come from referrals. The thing that drove most of the traffic to me though was all of the 5-star reviews on Google. I
Mm-hmm.
have a ton of them, and that's what people said. They said, "Man, I have." They either said, "I looked at the websites, I looked at the 5-star reviews, and you had the most, and that's why I came here,"
Mm-hmm.
or they said,
Mm-hmm.
"So and so told me that you were cool and that they learned a lot and you had a good experience, and that's why I
Mm-hmm.
came." And I was like, "Fantastic!" So for me,
Mm-hmm.
those were the two things. And one of the things that I learned is like whatever it is that you find what it is, if you can once you find that thing that makes the return on investment of the time and the energy to do it, then just
Mm-hmm.
triple down on it. Like
Yeah,
the floor
sure.
to put the pedal to the floor because you found a thing that works, right? And like you said, keep it simple. Once I found a thing that worked, I just stopped. I didn't do Facebook ads. I didn't do Instagram ads. I didn't do. All I did was make sure I was SEO'd correctly for the Google
Mm-hmm.
search, and I
Yep.
Googled everything out to make sure I would show up because Google wants you to do all that stuff, and they promote
Yep.
it for you if you
Yep.
do it.
Yep.
So I did
Yep.
that, and then the other thing too, is this is like I don't know 10 years ago, and it took me 2 or 3 years to kind of figure it all out. But somebody was like, uh, it was like get the Google reviews. It's the most important thing. Google review,
Yeah.
Google review, Google review.
Yeah.
Get the
Yeah.
tested
Our
review
corporate people push it pretty hard, and
because
and we've had some,
it works.
and we did have some success with that. With increasing the reviews, and I had a few people that called in and said, "Hey, we saw, your all your 5 stars, and that's why we called. And
Yeah.
and our referral, now that we have developed some of our own customers outside of the database that I sort of purchased when I bought the business. Um, those referrals are starting to pay off out in the community, and those people are referring people to me, and so that stuff is finally starting to pay off. It was just you get a little bit of panic there when you're when
Yeah.
for when you're first starting out, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like, things just like turn off like a faucet, and you're like, what happened? And but
Yeah.
now some work we put in early on is paying off. So it's we were doing the right things, we just weren't doing enough of it. So but that's changing, so we're headed in the right direction now. So
And I think one of the things that I understood is you have to, whatever your customers are, there's a rhythm and a pace of how they go through their day and their life, and you have to
mhm.
know what that is, and kind of make sure that you show up where they're looking. Which is,
Right.
it's an easy thing to say, but it's like, as you know, it's a hard thing to figure out, right?
Yeah.
But me at 52, I'm going to be watching different stuff than the 16-year-old girl is. I'm not. First of all, I'm not going to be on TikTok. So there's that.
Yeah. Right. Is
Um,
that
so how about, can you do you have a success story or a milestone that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, we there was a, job for over in Brunswick County for Brunswick County Parks. They had 6 new monuments that were going to be going to the entrance of their parks, and they were pretty good size, uh, roughly 4 foot by 8 foot. More, the overall size is about 5 foot by 10 foot. And the issue we had was Brunswick County last year's budget cycle decided that they aren't going to pay deposits on upfront on work anymore. So
Really?
really, yeah. But this was a very significant job, and so I worked with some of the people that I work with to have signs like that manufactured, and we agreed. We got some language put into the contract that payment is due upon delivery and everything. And the county put that in our vendor agreement and everything. So we went ahead and did everything up front, built the signs, delivered them. They gave us the check, and they've installed the monuments, and they look great. And it was a nice, a nice get. It's going to win me a couple of awards at my franchise expo next year.
Awesome. Yeah,
So
that's good feather in the cap, man.
yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
and
So
then
that's the biggest
if you
job we've had. So
if you get some good inroads into county municipalities, man, and you make some friends there, they remember that. You know,
yeah,
and then
well,
they'll tell other friends, and they'll tell other friends, and it's like,
we're doing
it's
an,
like
well, I'm like I'm their sign vendor now, because I'm their, so I'm doing another sign for the utility department next week. We're installing it. I got the cabinet sitting in my garage right now.
awesome.
So
It's well,
yeah,
good. That's good. That things
yeah,
are rolling,
yeah,
man. That's good.
yeah, yeah.
Um, well, then that kind of it kind of leads me to this one. Then, so what products or services are you most excited about right now outside of that one?
Like, primarily we're, I mean, like I said, we have a lot of capabilities and resources, and we've done, you know, huge jobs like that monument job, but primarily where our wheelhouse is we're a vinyl shop. So anything to do with vinyl, like you would ask me about, uh, storefront,
Yeah.
entrance, so like storefronts, panel signs, window graphics, wall graphics. We do a ton of vehicle graphics, commercial wraps, for companies that are looking to, advertise their van. We're going to be working with another member of ours, Andy and his wife Laura at the plumbing company that
Oh yeah,
have
yeah,
reached
yeah.
out to
Yeah,
do a
I
wrap for
like
their
them.
trailer. Yeah, so we're that's really our sweet spot, is for sure um, vinyl work. Particularly vehicles and exterior storefront graphics. We do a lot of that stuff. So
Awesome, awesome. Um,
that's where we like to live.
yeah. How do you engage your customers and build loyalty?
Again, it comes back to the level of service. I've had several customers tell me that they're switching. They switch sign companies to me because the level of service that they had gotten with their previous people had just fallen off, and they just couldn't get things done timely, and so they were looking elsewhere for solutions, and we jump on that every single time, and I've taken, I've done plenty of signs in other sign companies' backyards all around town,
Yeah.
just because they didn't
They dropped the ball.
they dropped the ball,
Yeah.
and some of them, I'm not going to name names because I don't like to put people's business in the street, but there's a couple of other sign companies around town whose reputation is
Oh, it's
not great.
cutthroat. It's
You
cutthroat
know,
here in Wilmington.
hmm
The sign game down here. But again, it's like you said, fast. Pick up the phone. Like if you want
hmm
that job, man, pick up the phone and then deliver. You know.
Well, the other thing that we do is and we've had a lot of internal discussion about this is, when we get a small customer in, do we turn them away offhand because we don't really make anything off of these small jobs? And I kind of took the opposite view of that, and I said, well, if Betty from so and so HOA comes in and she needs a "Don't park in front of my flowers" sign, a $40 sign or something, and I tell her no, go to Walmart or something like that. Well, what does that do for me? But if I go ahead and I make her little sign and she puts it in her little flower bed or whatever, and somebody asks her where she got it from, well, who knows who she's going to tell?
Or what's going
You
to
know,
happen is her son, who's a hedge fund manager and needs
sure,
some
right,
stuff later on,
exactly,
she's going to
right,
be, well, that guy Philip was so nice to me,
right,
he
exactly,
went ahead and did it. Yeah, and so
and
it just goes to show you, man, that doing you I Gary V, he's like left left right. It's like and
mm,
sure, it may not be worth the time to do it if you're a larger operation, but it does you can't get better goodwill than that. I mean, the goodwill that
correct.
you'll build from that for doing something small like that, you never know where it's going to lead. And even if it doesn't go anywhere, well, you still just made this old lady's day.
Made it because we did, and we had a couple of old ladies that came in here one day, and they were artists, and they'd worked with 4 or 5 other artists on this sort of abstract painting that they've been working on for a number of years. And they came here to ask, could we get them like a matte, satin matte photo print of it and everything. That's not something we typically do.
Right.
I have access to the media and everything, but I went ahead and did it essentially at cost, because the cost of the roll of paper was more than I could charge them, for two 18 by 24 prints,
Yeah.
uh, but we went ahead and did it, and they loved it, and they were happy, and it made their day. These are 70-some-year-old women who just wanted to display their art at their little art meeting that they have
Yeah.
every week or whatever.
And
It
you
was
planted
great,
that
and
seed, man. Yeah, that's
yeah,
fantastic, dude.
and
Uh,
we're happy. So,
let's see. Man, we're just flying. You know what? Let's go this way. Let's go in this direction. What advice would you give other small business owners or entrepreneurs?
um, that's a tough one. I could talk for days about that, probably.
Well, how about
Um,
this? Let's boil it down to. I asked my brother a similar question, but I asked him, "Did you have what's the number one most important lesson that you've learned since you've been in business?"
um, Own your mistakes.
He said this.
You
He
know,
said the same thing, by the way.
own your, be honest with yourself. If you've made a mistake and you need to change something, especially if it's, as the business owner or the head of the business, whatever that looks like, you're the one steering the ship. So if you make a mistake, you need to not only own that mistake to yourself, but to your employees, to your customers, whoever it
Yeah.
may be. You need to be willing to admit, hey, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done this, or I should have done that way. And that's the only way you can grow, not only as a business but as a human being. Is recognizing when you've done something incorrectly. Whether it was, most of the time, if you make a mistake, it's not intentional. You're not intentionally, trying to do something the wrong way.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have a thought that, oh yeah, this is how you're supposed to do this, and then all of a sudden reality smacks you in the face, like, oh, I've been doing that wrong this whole time, and you have to be willing to course correct,
Yep.
and that's that was probably you know, the biggest reality call that I had when because there's certain things that you imagine before you come up as business owner, especially in this business, where you think, oh, this will be easy, that'll be easy, oh, this is going to work like
Yeah.
this and work like
Nope.
that, and that's not that way at all.
Yeah.
And so you really have to suck it up and say, okay, how does it really work?
Yeah. Yeah. And the hustle game, they call that pivot, right? You got to pivot and
Right.
figure it out.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
what are the future goals and plans for
Um,
Signorama?
I, yeah, we chatted a little bit about it earlier. I mean, right now, I'm in a great location. I love this town. Ever since the first time I set foot in it back in 2008, nine, I think was the first time I visited here. And so, my goal is, hopefully within, 5 years that we'll be able to open up a sales center, maybe over in Leland, maybe open up a sales center up in Jacksonville, and you know, kind of have the coastline to myself. As far as Sonorama is concerned, obviously there's a lot of competition in the sign business,
Sure.
but there's
But if you
there's
keep
plenty of
outperforming them on the customer service level, you'll have it.
yeah, for sure, and there's plenty of business to go around for everybody,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. There is.
I'll put our work up against anybody in town, or anybody in the country. We've done for being a small shop. We've done some really significant work in the sign business that I'm not so sure a lot of other sign companies could pull off with the personnel and resources that we had to work with early on, especially. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's the thing too about being a small operator is it makes you go guerrilla style. It's like sometimes you
you
just
got
have to pull off
to you got to
miraculous
solve
things
problems.
with a shoestring crew and skeleton crew and a shoestring budget. But it's like,
Yep.
but that makes you resilient and it gives you the confidence to weather the storm.
Mm-hmm.
When they show up, because you're like, we'll be okay because
Mm-hmm.
we have people who love us. We've done right by people. Our reputation speaks for itself, and that's like one of the most important things is your reputation.
Sure.
Because
Mm-hmm.
it takes years to build and like 1 second to destroy.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you
And I'm
have to
very
protect it,
conscious of that.
right?
Yeah. And I'm very
Um,
conscious of that. So,
so we're getting close to landing the plane here, but let's see. Is there anything I didn't ask that you'd want to touch on?
uh, golly, I think we've covered a pretty wide array of
I think we did.
topics. You know, uh, so like I said, my the biggest I don't want to say struggle. It's not the right word, but
Could be
if any
area of opportunities. Sometimes was what people say.
sure. Um, but one of the things that we, if any potential customers happen to see this, or anybody else in the group happens to see this, and they're interested in knowing a little bit more about how the process of the sign industry works. I try to be as upfront about that as I can, when we're educating customers at the beginning, because that was kind of something we weren't very good at first. We were just excited to get an order,
Yeah.
like, oh, somebody wants something, but now that we've started to kind of get our processes and things in place, we're trying to do a better job at, you know, educating them from step by step by step. This is kind of how the process works, and people seem to appreciate it. That it's been explained to them that they're not. It's not just somebody on the phone like, okay, we'll send you an email. Bye, click. I try to take the time to explain, the length of the process it takes. Because not every sign can be made in 2 days.
Right. Right.
Which is again, if you've ever had customers, everybody wants everything yesterday, and
Yeah.
in my business, that's usually impossible. But
Yeah, managing expectations is
correct.
it is
Yeah.
a skill, like
Hmm.
negotiation is a skill, sales
Hmm.
is a skill, just
Hmm.
talking to people in general is a skill, and
For
then
sure.
managing expectations is a skill, but it's part of the process, especially
Mhm.
where you're sitting, and then you're going to have to hold people's hands through that, because
We
you
do.
don't want them to be surprised and then for them to go, "What?" It's like, "No, no, no, you're
Yeah.
talking about a sign that's enormous. That takes a lot of time.
Right.
I don't think you can get it
Right.
tomorrow afternoon by 2:30. It just
Right.
doesn't work that way." Um,
Right.
and the way you do it is important too. So, um, well, people will see this. I mean, I know you're just starting out in that business, even though the business has been established, and I'm just starting out doing this, even though I have two other YouTube channels and one other podcast that I'm been working on consistently. So uh, this will be seen at the very least by people in our group and people in our circles. And
Hmm.
if we queue it up and SEO it right, it'll be searchable as well. So that being said, how can our audience the people who are ultimately going to be seeing this and taking interest in it, how can they support your business and where can they find you? I mean, we've got the number there, but is there a website or
Sure. You
stuff?
can find us. The website would be sinorama-wilmington.com. You can find us there, and there's an inquiry form there that you can upload your own if you have photos or art files that you want to upload to us to take a look at, or photos of your storefront or vehicles that you might want to have done, and include any all your contact info in there, and that automatically feeds you into our system, and we see that immediately and can respond in a timely fashion. Again, back to the kind of the most important thing that we do is we respond. Um, or you can find us on Facebook at Sinorama of Wilmington, and same thing on Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome,
So,
awesome. Well,
and Google, and of course Google,
yeah,
we're there,
Google
so
it.
you can see
Yeah,
it. Yeah, you can
these
see us there.
Googles, man. You can't leave Google. They'll shut down the
Right.
video for not mentioning them.
Right. You got to mention Google for sure. The
Brother,
phone's listening.
um, I really do appreciate you taking the time, man. It's been
Nice,
a very interesting
nice.
conversation.
Okay.
I hope it works out for both of us. But
Yeah, me too. I appreciate it. It's been a cool experience, and I'll definitely want to do it again down the road
yeah,
when the time's right, of course. So
we'll do it again when it's some kind of milestone. We'll celebrate.
yeah, absolutely.
All
Sounds like
right.
a plan.
Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much, man. I'm going to call it right here.